let me jump into NetSuite and kind of give you a quick walkthrough of the application. So when you first log into NetSuite, you are essentially able to, when you log in first initially, you're going to see I'm logged in the very top as a user named Catherine Glass. And my current role that I'm logged in as is an administrative type of role. NetSuite comes where it's a role-based application. So as you create users, you're going to define which role they have access to. You can have them have access to one role, or they can have access to multiple roles. So again, you can define what particular role they are assigned to. You can also have, within NetSuite, there's what's called a vendor role and a customer role. So if you want to give your vendors access to your NetSuite environment to look up the status of purchase orders, what the POs they have currently open, you can give vendors the rights to do that. You also have the capability to go in and view a customer role, where customers can log in and view what's the status of my order. I want to look at what my tracking number is for that shipment. Again, you can give your primary customers access to the application as well. And again, there's no additional charge for that particular functionality. As far as navigating the application itself, you can see once I log in, I have got the very top here, I've got what's called a general search window. This is where I can search for any type of function within the application. I can also see that I've got a dashboard that's tied to my administrative role. So as I scroll down, you can see I've got a lot of different metrics tied to my administrator. I've got who are my primary contacts. I've got reminders that I need to do for the day. And as I scroll down, I've got comparative sales numbers where I hover over them. I can see the different metrics. And again, I can see different board metrics. So depending on the role and the user you're logged into, your dashboard will change. So if I come up here at the top right and I change this view to say, you know what, I want to look at what a manufacturing, let's say a supply chain manager, let's use that one as an example. If I'm a supply chain manager, this is their home dashboard. So they're going to see different things that pertain to what their role is. So they're going to see what items do I have that needs to be ordered, what work orders that are completed that I now need to close. So again, their dashboard pertains to their metrics that are important to their day-to-day job. Whereas, to kind of give you one more example, here's more of what a chief financial officer role might look at. So their role is going to be more financials based. So again, my reminders show how many bills do we have open to be paid? How many bills do I have sitting out that I need to approve? So again, I don't have to go to multiple screens to see what I have to do in my particular day. So it's very easy to navigate between what I have to do and what things I need to be alerted about. So again, as I scroll down, I've got a lot of different metrics pertaining to my particular role. You'll also notice on these different dashboards, as I hover over them, I also get the little index finger where I can drill down to look at the corresponding data tied to that. So if I want to look at this $1.99 million revenue for this current period, I can either left click on this number, or I can right click on it and I can open that up in a new tab where I can then view an income statement that's tied where it's showing me where it's getting that $1.99 million number for the month. You can see it automatically passed that it's currently pulling my February, which is my current period, for my headquartered company. So again, the dashboarding is really drill downable and adjustable by the user. You don't need to be a programmer. And again, all of these KPIs come pre-built with the application. If I want to condense one down, I can collapse by just clicking on the header, which will collapse those particular ones down. And if I want to expand it, I just click on it again and it'll re-expand those different dimensions out. If I want to move it, I can just click and drag where I want them to move. So there's a lot of different things with you, what you can do with these different KPIs and dashboards. Now, I'm on the CFO dashboard, and this is looking at just a high-level look at my business. If I want to look at just customer-related dashboards, you're not tied to just one home dashboard. I can also click on my customers header, and I'm going to get an entirely different dashboard that pertains more to just my customers. You know, what's my open AR? What are my sales? What new customers did we add this particular month? So again, it's geared more towards customers. Same thing goes if I want to look at a vendor one. I can click on the vendor tab, and now I'm looking at data that's pertaining to purchases, AP bills, what vendors are late on their purchase orders. So again, it's kind of geared towards function. Now, as far as navigating, just general navigation of the application, I'm going to go back to my administrator role where I've got access to everything. And one of the first things that you'll notice is on the left-hand side here, I've got the ability where I can go in and I can add favorites. So every user has the ability to go in and add favorites to what their primary screens are that they have access to. So again, I don't have to toggle through the menu structure of NetSuite to find it. So I can either add it to my favorites, or the other thing you could do as well is you can also add it to your role, where I can add it to my dashboard here to show it on my dashboard, my different shortcuts. The other way of navigating is through the general menu, which is this bluish gray section here. So this is where if I hover over transactions, you can see the transactions are geared towards function again. So if I'm entering in a payables transaction, you can see if I go under payables, it's where I can bill my POs, I can enter in my bills, I can approve bills, pay bills. So again, it's by function. Where if I go to customers, again, this is where I do all of my accounts receivable type of transactions. Same thing goes in relating to reports. Reports is also geared towards function. So here's all of my financial reports. Here's all of my purchasing reports. So again, it's very easy to navigate NetSuite. But again, if you don't want to find it through this menu structure here, the best way to do it would be to add it to your dashboard as a shortcut or add it to one of your favorites up here in the top left. Some other features of NetSuite that you've got as well that we kind of talked about earlier. If I run, let's say, just a basic financial statement, let me run an income statement as an example. When I run my income statement, you can see I've got my report here on the middle, and on the bottom here is where I've got my filtering. So right now it's showing me my income statement for January through December for my United States subsidiary. NetSuite is a multi-subsidiary application where if you have multiple subsidiaries running within it, you don't have to log in and out of a company to do a transaction in. So all I need to do is if I want to run an income statement for a different company, I would just click this drop down, change it to the other company and click refresh, and then it's going to run the income statement for that one, the subsidiary that I chose for on the bottom section down below. The other feature that you've got as well is I can see right now the columns it's showing only in the total style. If I want to view this data broken out by, let's say, by department, I can then change it to say I want to look at my income statement, but I want to see it broken out by my different departments. So when I change it by department to columns, now you can see I've got all that information broken out by my different departments as well. Now, as I'm doing drilling within this application, you'll notice that again, as I hover over these different numbers, I can drill down further. So if I want to look at my advertising expense account, let's say for $50,000, again, I can either left click on that number to open up that detail report, or the other option within NetSuite that you can do is I can right click on it and say I want to open this $50,000 number up into a new tab. And then what I'll do is it'll open up that income statement detail on a separate tab where I can now view that $50,000 number, where I can see the journal entries or bills or invoices, whatever the transaction came from for that entry. Now, if I want to drill down further, again, I can right click again, open that journal entry up, and that will take me to the actual corresponding journal entry that's tied to. So again, it's easy where you can take it from the summary level report down to essentially down to the actual journal entry that's tied to, or AP bill, or sales order, or work order, whatever that particular function's tied to. All right, as far as this global search it is up here, I call this the NetSuite Google search essentially. And what this does is this kind of becomes your friend if you wear a lot of hats within your organization. If for some reason you get a call from a vendor or a customer and they have a question about one of their invoices or an AP bill or a work order, whatever it might be, this is where you can come up and you can search for any key variable within the application. So if I'm searching for, let's say we have a customer named ABC Company. So if I start typing in ABC Co., you'll see that not only does it bring up my customer for ABC Company, it also brought up the 2 contacts I have at ABC Company, as well as an existing sales opportunity that we have as well. So again, if I want to quickly look up my customer, I don't have to go to a customer specific search screen. I can just come up here, type in ABC, part of the name, and I can essentially from here now open up that customer record quickly and look at the information tied to that customer, like their terms, whatever the information is I want to look at that particular customer. You can also use this same screen for searching for an order. So if a customer calls and says, hey, I have a question about my order 1816, I can come up here, type in 1816, and you'll notice what it does is it brings up any transaction with 1816 in it. So it's got invoice 1816, a purchase order 1816, and then here's the sales order 1816. So again, I can search for that and bring up that particular transaction very quickly. And now I can select it, answer the customer's question about that particular sales order. So now at this point, I can see the status of the sales order, that it's been billed. If I scroll down, I can see all the line items that they purchased on that particular sales order. I can see that they ordered to, that we picked to, we packed to, fulfilled to, and we invoiced to. So if they have any questions relating to when was it shipped, what's the tracking number, what I can do is I can go right to related records, and I can then view that item fulfillment. I can view the tracking number on it, and I can also view the invoice number that it was invoiced back to them for on. So again, it's very easy to do a search on this very top section as well. Now, if I know I'm looking for a sales order, I can also type in the word SAL here and then type in 1816, and it will know that I'm searching for a particular sales order. So I could type in just SA colon or SAL, whatever you want to do, and it'll know that it's searching for a sales order versus a purchase order. So same thing goes if I type in PUR as purchase order, now it knows that I'm searching for a purchase order number 1816. So again, the search function is a very nice feature within NetSuite with finding transactions. Let's see. The next feature I want to talk about real quick is, again, trying to find another record. So if I look at, let's say, a sales order, if I go to my transactions and I go to my sales orders and I look at my list of all of my sales orders I currently have out there, NetSuite will always provide a list of what those sales orders are that you currently have sitting out there. You can see I've got a filter that's tied to my lower grid where I can essentially edit this view, where I can add additional filtering, or I can edit the columns that it's displaying as well. So if I want to show, let's say, the sales rep on this particular sales order, I can edit the view and I can add the sales rep as a column. If I want to filter by the sales rep, I can do the same thing. I can also edit the view and add that as a filter where I can then filter my sales orders where I can see what orders are out there by sales rep. So again, it's very easy to customize these different views. The other option you can do as well is I can make specific views tied to this as well. So if I want to make a view I have to always look up, let's say that Smith Supplies is a customer that we use quite a bit. I want to create a view where it's always going to pull up my Smith Supply invoices. I can create a view that's specific to them where it will then automatically filter just Smith Supplies. So you can create as many different view types as you want within the application. And then also I can obviously do a search from here as well. So I can click Control F and I can search for a particular number. So if I type in 2445, I think it'll basically find that particular sales order in my list, just like typical browser would. And now I can go in and I can view that particular sales order and pull it up. So again, it's very easy to find different aspects, to find records within the application by either using the global search, or you can just go to the listing of those transactions and find a search that way as well. Let's talk a little bit about workflows that we talked about earlier with regards to automating processes within the application. One of the things that comes with NetSuite is the ability to create workflows. And think of a workflow as both, let's say, an approval workflow where anytime somebody enters in, let's say, an accounts payable bill that's going to the marketing department, it needs to be approved by Tom Smith first. So you could create a workflow that would basically allow and pass that particular bill electronically and send an email to that particular person that they need to approve that particular AP bill. You could set whatever thresholds you want. You could say if it's over a certain amount, it's got to go to this person. If it's within this particular amount, it's got to go to this other person. So you can define in those workflows that type of complexity. The other feature that workflows do as well that I like is that let's say you want to set up a rule that says when a sales rep or a customer service rep enters in a new customer sales order and they change the terms, let's say, on the order, I want that to have to go to an approval person. You could do the same thing where it's geared towards if a person enters something in on the screen where they change a term, that would kick off a workflow. So you could have it field specific or you could have it transaction specific. So as an example of what one of this looks like is I'm going to pull up this requisition approval one. So I'm going to go ahead and click on edit under the requisition approval. So you can see it's very process driven where essentially you don't need to be a programmer really to define this. Bailey will train you and your IT staff on how these workflows work during an implementation. So one of the first things you do is you define on step one is what starts this workflow. So in this case, it's saying that when we initiate a new purchase order requisition, it's going to essentially do this process next. It's going to set the field value of the created by of the requisition to the user that entered in the requisition. It's going to set the field value of the approval status equal to pending approval. And then what it's going to do is it's going to basically say it's going to do these two things. The first thing it's going to define is going to say return a user error where it's going to say you cannot send this purchase order for approval because you currently have no assigned supervisor. So what it's basically saying is that if the person entering in the requisition has no supervisor defined on their user, then it's going to pass that error saying you can't enter a requisition, and it's going to fail that. If it works, if they have an approver on their employee record, it now is going to go down to the next step where it's going to allow them to save the record, and it's going to submit that through the approval rules that we've got defined. And then you can see, I'll kind of fast forward a little bit here, but now you can see once the status goes to approved, what it's going to do is essentially going to say that once the field value gets set to approved, it's going to basically send now an email to the approver that their particular requisition has now been approved. And this is again where you can then define what that email is going to say. So it's going to say your purchase order, and then we popped in the PO Tran ID, which is the purchase order number, has been approved. And you can see it's going to go to the current record, the purchase order requisition. It's going to go to the created by user of who entered in that requisition. So again, you've got full workflow capability within the application. So if there's controls that you want to set in place, you can do that. A good use case for what we did recently was if a customer short paid an invoice for whatever reason, the customer wanted to have it set up where it would automatically send an email to the sales rep that they short paid an invoice. So that was an example of a workflow that we did recently where now the accounting group didn't need to manually enter in an email to the sales rep that they short paid. It would automatically do it on the saving of that cash receipt. So that's just a good example of how you can automate some of those processes within your day-to-day things that you're doing manually by using the workflows within the application. Another feature that's nice as well that we talked about during the PowerPoint part was the ability to kind of schedule reports to get run out as well. Let's say that what we want to do is we've got this AR aging report that we have that we run by, where it shows by sales rep. So here's an example where this is showing me what customers currently owe money and the sales reps that are tied to them. One of the features that you can do is let's say that we want our sales rep to be proactive in reaching out to our customers that they need to pay. This is where, again, you can go in here and you can define and schedule reports that get sent out on a scheduled basis. So now I can define this to say, I'm going to send this out weekly, and I can define a weekly schedule. I can say that I want to schedule this out to go out every single Monday. So I'll click on the calendar, say I want to start next Monday. I can define the time this should get sent out. So I'll say I want to start their day at 8 a.m. with that email. I'm going to click to run the report more than once, and I'm going to tell it to run it every single Monday instead of Friday. And now again, you could put start and end date parameters. I could put in a message box of what the subject line should say, what it should say in the body of the email, and then I can then define who the recipients are of that particular email. And they could be NetSuite users or external users as well. They don't need to be a NetSuite user to get that report. So again, another way of automating reports to get sent out to people. Another use case that this is great for is sending budget to actual reporting to your department heads. Again, having that automated process to send those reports to your department head people so they can see where they stand to their budget. Again, it's another time saver on your part to have to do that, to not have to do that manually. All right, let's talk about planning and scheduling and work orders real quick. Obviously, NetSuite's got a manufacturing component to it. It's very robust in how the functionality works. There's a lot of different configurations that you can do. The end result, obviously, of what it will end up producing is what's called a work order within NetSuite. So if I look at my list of work orders that I currently have in the application, you can see I've got a lot of different work orders. I've got a name where if this particular work order is tied to a customer, that can be associated to a customer. I can see the status of the work order, if it's currently in a planned status, if it's been released to the shop floor, or if it's in process, or if it's been completed. I can also define which location or manufacturing location this is currently being produced in. The difference between a planned status and a release status is planned basically means it's not going to show up on the workflows queue yet because we're still determining when we want to release it to the shop floor. Once you release it to the shop floor, now it will start showing on handhelds and on pick tickets within the shop floor that they can now work on this particular work order. Once any process has been done on that work order, it now goes to an in-process status. So if I look at one that's currently in process, that was a planned one, let me go back, let's do this one. Here's one that's currently in process. So you can see here that I can see the status that the date of that work order was currently created on February 10th. We're tracking WIP on this particular work order. So we're tracking where it is in the routing. I can see the bill of material that's currently being used and the revision of the bill of material that we're using. As I scroll down, I can see here's all the items that are going to be pulled for this particular bill of material. And then most importantly, I can go into the operations tab and I can see where it is in this current status. So right now we currently are showing that we've got 10 that currently need to be completed. We currently have completed 9. So I can kind of see the status of this. So this is currently a one-step router. If this had multiple steps in the routing, it would show all of those different steps and where it is in the completion of that particular work order. Now, how the bill of materials work is I'm going to pull up a assembly item called SAF 300, and I'm going to show you what a bill of material and routing looks like. And you can see here on my assembly item, I've got my item ID and my description of my item. As I scroll down here, you can see I've got one bill of material associated to this particular SKU. I can have multiple versions tied to this particular item as well. And I can also default a particular bill of material by location. So if your bill of material varies by location of what's producing it, you can default it by location as well. So if I pull up a bill of material, this is where I can then view that particular revision of what that's going to be pulling. So in this case, when I produce this particular item, here's all of the different raw material goods that I'm pulling to produce that finished good. And here's the bill of material, the quantity that's going to be consumed to produce one of those particular fans. So again, it kind of drives, again, what that bill of material looks like and what the component items are in that bill of material. The other component of it then is also the routing then. So the routing defines what are the steps it goes through to produce that finished good. So here's an example of a multi-step routing. So the first thing it's going to do is it goes through my assembly. The second thing it's going to do is going to go through my electrical assembly, and then finally it's going to go to an inspection group. How this defines this, and there's a lot of configuration behind this, is this is where you can define labor rates, utility rates, where it'll start tracking, what is the cost, the true cost of manufacturing those different items. It's where I can track how many machine resources do I need to produce an item, how many labor people do I need to produce an item, what's the setup time, what's the run time. So again, this is where you kind of manage what that routing looks like. The component per operation is where I can then define for my raw materials at what step am I pulling those raw materials into the work order. So when am I issuing those components to the work order? And then lastly, I like to point out work instructions. When you print out a work order traveler, as an example, and I want to print out different drawings or different work instructions, this is where I can attach those drawings and instructions, essentially, directing the people at that assembly line what they need to do with that particular work order. So again, it kind of gives you that additional visibility and instructions to the people out on the floor. So that's the work order piece. So not the work, that's the bill of material and routing component. The next thing I want to talk about real quick is the MRP component. And this is where you can define what is my demand and supply planning. So demand plan in NetSuite and supply plan almost run hand in hand within the application. If I go under transactions, you'll notice demand planning and supply planning are right by each other for a reason. The demand plan can be calculated as one option. It can also be imported if you have it in Excel. For some reason, you want to import the demand plan, and you can do that as well. Or you can manually enter in your demand plan into NetSuite as well. So there's a lot of different ways that you can calculate out what your demand plan is. Once the demand plan is run, let's say you're running it yourself automatically, what you can do is it will then show you all of your different items that you currently have run the demand plan for. Now, if I want to view one of the demand plans that I've got, I can click on view, and I can see essentially what was calculated out based upon the variables that I've entered in the application. So here I have it set up where it's showing me what my weekly projected demand is going to be that I ran previously. So I ran this prior to this demo, where you can see it's projecting my demand by week of what it calculated out. So it's saying we need 45 is our projected demand for that week, 101 for that week, 55 for that week. So again, it's defining and calculating out based upon sales orders that are upcoming, or depending on how you calculate it, it could also look at prior month demand and kind of take a linear regression, an average regression, or you could choose it where it could be seasonal. So you still have the ability as a demand person, I could still edit this to say, you know what, I know we're not going to have 101 this particular week. I want to bump this down to 80. So the person who's reviewing the demand plan always have the capability to go in and enter and edit the demand plan if they see fit, but prior to running the supply plan. So again, that kind of allows you to go in and define what your demand plans are. As far as running the demand plan, I can click on calculate this, and this is really where you define this. Some people run this once a week, some people run this on a monthly basis, but again, what you'll do is you'll define what subsidiary I want to calculate demand plan for, which manufacturing location I want to do the demand plan for. This is where I can define how it's going to calculate that demand plan out, where it could be linear regression, moving average, based upon my sales forecast, or it could be based upon seasonal. So again, that's where you can define that information. And then you can define, how do I calculate my demand out? Am I calculating it out on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis? So I ran it weekly before, and then all you're doing is now you're defining how many weeks forward do I want to project my demand out at. So again, let's say if I want to project it out the next, we'll say 16 weeks, I would say I want to project out 16 weeks, and I'm going to look at my 16 weeks prior demand to kind of get what that projected demand is going to look like. So is demand going up? Is demand going down? Is it staying pretty flat? So again, that's where you can define that and then submit it. Once the demand plan is completed, the last step then is the supply plan. And the supply plan feature is now where you can then see, based upon what our demand is, what purchase orders and what work orders do we need to produce and purchase to meet that upcoming demand. So now what I can do is I can then view the results on my different demand plan or my supply plan to see that. So this planning workbench, what it's going to do is it's going to show you all of your raw material items, all of your assembly items, where it's going to show you what you currently have on hand, what you have on order, what's currently late, as well as any actions that need to be taken to meet that demand, that upcoming demand that you've got projected. So if, for example, here's an assembly item that we've got, this ultrasound keyboard. If I click on this little caret next to that item, you can see that the raw material items that go into that assembly item are the keyboard, a case, and a cord. So how this works is now it'll then show you what that projected demand is that you've got coming up. So if I click on these hyperlinks, it'll take me to show me that we've got work orders that are projected out, dated on April 16th, the 23rd, May 1st, and May 6th. So we've got assemblies that are coming up that need to be planned for. What happens then is when I look at that particular item, I can then look at the supply as well. So what happened then is that particular function is going to come from our current on-hand quantity. So we've currently got 56 on hand. So there's really nothing that needs to be done in that particular record. There's nothing that's due. The difference, though, is that if I look at an item that does need action, this is where it's going to say, let's say for this one, this is sub-assembly item, you can see here it's pulling from on-hand quantity. However, once we get down into April, now you can see we're going to run out of stock. So it's basically stating that you need to create a planned work order that we need to release. So I can now mark, if I want to, I can say I want to go ahead and release these particular work orders to the shop floor to produce that particular product. So supply and demand planning work very much hand in hand to get that the proper goods in stock to make sure that you've got orders aren't going to be late, nothing's going to be back ordered. But again, what happens then is that this particular workbench is a very good way to get visually to see what you've got that you have to be alerted for, as well as what you've got coming up within the application. The last component I want to talk about is on the mobile side. So NetSuite has a WMS component. So people in the shop floor, if they've got the capability and they've got, whether you have a tablet or they want to use their phones, you always have the capability for mobile processing on the WMS side within the warehouse. So as you can see on this particular screen, let me make this larger. Let's see, there we go. As you can see on the mobile app, you can do a lot of different things. I can do bin transfers, I can do replenishments, I can create inventory, I can do a cycle count, I can do picking, receiving, anything mobile-wise on the application. It's all real time. It's all coming through the application at real-time moment. So there's no syncing of the mobile component and the WMS component within NetSuite. It's automatically going to be real-time processing as you go. So again, you can push pick slips, you can push wave picking, you can push individual order picking. There's a lot of different things you could do within the mobility app as well.